On the first weekend of December, high schooler Navraj Kaur joined Punjabi and Sikh Americans across the West Coast to cross the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge and protest.
We're gonna rally all the way to the Indian Embassy.
This is part of a worldwide movement in solidarity with demonstrations by farmers in India, who are demanding that their government withdraw a set of laws that could change the way farming there is done forever.
So Prime Minister Modi of India, he introduced these new laws and they're all anti-farmers. Our sense of belonging is attached to our land, so we're protesting here.
Punjab is a North Indian state, famous as the homeland of the Sikhs and the country's breadbasket. Over Thanksgiving, India's riot police firing tear gas and water cannons to try and stop tens of thousands of farmers from marching from Punjab to New Delhi.
People back home they're getting hit, they're getting, water sprayed on them, they're going through all of that, and we kind of felt guilty that we're just sitting here not doing anything. But now that we've all came together for the same issue to get rid of the bills, it really feels powerful.
About 15 of Kaur's relatives are encamped with farmers who've shut down 3 major New Delhi highways since the end of November.
ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਜੇ ਮੋਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨਦੀ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਮੋਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਟਦੀ ਬਿੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਾਸ ਕਰਦੀ ਜਦ ਤੱਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਟੋਟਲੀ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਮੀਂਦਾਰ ਆ ਸਭ ਜ਼ਿਮੀਂਦਾਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਏਕਾ ਹੈ.
And more farmers are continuing to join the camps. People are sleeping in their tractors and under buses, have bathing stations set up, created volunteer-run medical clinics, and have massive free community meals capable of feeding thousands.
ਸਾਨੂੰ 2 ਮਹੀਨੇ 4 ਮਹੀਨੇ 6 ਮਹੀਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਬੈਠਣਾ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੈਠਾਂਗੇ ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਵਾਪਸ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਹੀ ਪਿੰਡ ਨੂੰ ਵਰਤਾਂਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਸਾਡਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਉਦੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰਲੀਆਂ ਸਟੇਟਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਤੋਂ ਮਿਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਮੋਢੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੋਢਾ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਖੜੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ.
The new laws will cut out the role of middlemen and allow buyers to directly contract farmers. They also lift restrictions on artificial price inflation and lay the framework for private markets to replace the government-subsidized ones that most small farm owners currently rely on. While economists say these new reforms will increase competition, protesters fear that in the long run, they'll give corporations the power to squeeze the average Indian farm owner who has less than 2 acres of land out of their holdings altogether.
ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਅੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਾਪਸ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਜਾਣਾ. ਅਗਰ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਨਦੀ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੀ ਵਾਪਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਰੋਜ਼ ਘੁੱਟ ਮਰਨ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਗੋਲੀਆਂ ਖਾ ਕੇ ਮਰਨ ਲਈ ਤਿਆਰ ਹਾਂ ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਵਾਪਸ ਕਰਾ ਕੇ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ.
When the laws were passed in September's pandemic peak, they were rushed through parliament in a voice vote. By parliament's own rules, voice votes like these are supposed to go to an actual count if the call is challenged. But the bill's opponents say they weren't given that chance. Millions of workers, backed by labor unions and several opposition parties, joined farmers in what's being called the biggest strike in world history.
He thought that the farmers wouldn't be able to do anything, and he thought, they wouldn't really know what to do about it. They're suffocating Delhi right now. We can tell they are scared right now.
Modi wants to negotiate with farmers, but protesters are adamant about blocking New Delhi's roads until the government takes back the laws entirely. And until then, demonstrators abroad plan to keep showing solidarity with their relatives in the homeland.
Edward Snowden, are you listening?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Imagine that you worked at the CIA. And on the first day you work at the CIA, you have to take what they call an oath of service. And here you have to swear an oath to support and defend not the agency, not a secret, not even a president, but the Constitution of your country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And many years later, you find that what you are doing, what everyone at your agency is doing, is a gigantic conspiracy to violate precisely that oath you took on the very first day. For myself, the answer was clear. And when the government can act behind closed doors, when they can change the game without our knowledge and consent, I believe the public has a right to know about that.
What was the message that you wanted the US public, the publics of the world, to take from what you saw and you disclosed?
And the thing that drove me forward, the thing that chilled me, is that intelligence collection and surveillance more broadly was happening in an entirely different way. It was no longer the targeted surveillance of the past. Instead, they began watching everyone, everywhere, all the time, saving as much information as they could, even for people who had done nothing wrong, simply because it could eventually be useful. This is what I call the creation of the new permanent record. Systems were being created that did this all the time in the background, and nobody in a position of power tried to stop it because it benefited them. And this is what brings us to the democratic problem. The law didn't matter. The courts didn't matter. Your rights didn't matter because the system had redefined and compromised them and what they meant in absolute secrecy. What do you do when the most powerful institutions in society have become the least accountable to society? And I think that's the question that our generation exists to answer. And whether we're talking about Facebook or the NSA, that is the problem. That's the real problem. We have legalized the abuse of the person through the personal. We have entrenched a system that makes the population vulnerable for the benefit of the privileged. You want to believe the government is going to have the tools they need to investigate serious crimes, to prevent acts of terrorism. But when we look at what these programs actually were used for and what the results of them were, we saw that tools that had been intended to protect the public had been in many ways used to attack the public. And ultimately, turning over perfect records of private lives on demand to institutions that are no longer meaningfully accountable to the public at large. You use these services and they create a permanent record of everything you've done simply by having your phone in this room on you in your pocket, not even using it, but simply having it turned on, registers your presence at this event because your phone's association with the Wi-Fi points that are around it, your phone's association with the cellular towers that are around it. Data isn't harmless. Data isn't abstract when it's about people. And almost all of the data that's being collected today is about people. It is not data that is being exploited. It is people that are being exploited. It is not data and networks that are being influenced and manipulated. It is you that is being manipulated.
本身我係一個運動員啦，亦都係一個 climber。喺2016年都成功用輪椅爬咗獅子山啦。咁啊，到5年之後嘅2021年，咁就準備用輪椅再挑戰呢個300米高嘅魚心廣場。我係黎志偉。我喺香港做咗11年嘅攀石運動員啦，咁啊當中攞過10屆全國冠軍，咁4屆亞洲冠軍，咁我就喺2011年嘅12月9號遇上一個交通意外啦，咁就成為一個半身癱瘓人士。經歷事故之後，咁我諗大約有半年時間到啦，我係唔開心，亦都唔想接受呢個現實嘅，我要坐低，人哋講嘢我都要抬高個頭。咁同以前嘅角度係完全唔同晒咯，但係亦都係咁樣經歷咗呢一樣之後，令到我諗，除咗維持你嘅生命，你個人生仲可唔可以揾啲有意義嘅嘢去做呢？我覺得無論傷殘又好，健全又好，只要你仲生存緊、呼吸緊，你就應該要諗下你自己嘅人生或者餘下嘅時間，你想做啲乜嘢？個個人都要解決好多唔同嘅問題，每一日都可以自己選擇嘅就係。我要開心咁過，定係唔開心咁過呢？ 坐輪椅之後，你可以選擇乜都唔做嘅，但係我就去選擇去做翻自己中意做嘅嘢。咁因為受傷之後，好多人都幫咗我啦，我知道係我有呢個凝聚嘅能力㗎，我好想將幫我呢扎人嘅力量去將佢放大，我就好想去完成呢樣嘢。我希望都大家真係睇到呢件事而去關注呢一樣嘢，亦都係支持翻我哋脊髓損傷嘅病人啦，多啲去捐款俾香港大學，咁去做一個機械腳嘅籌款啦。20年已經過去啦，幾難過幾辛苦都好，咁新嘅一年就再重新開始，再出發過。
咁慢慢，佢都要即係不能一下子好急速咁嘅。而家見到智慧啦。
係爬咗好高嘅距離啊！
雖然今次係有少少嘅遺憾，但係我都想鼓勵翻大家。我好多謝今日支持我嘅朋友仔啦，係支持我嘅香港市民啦，好多我知道好多人俾咗好多祝福我，我都好想去到完成佢。係但係我諗同我人生一樣㗎啦，可能人生就係好多嘢都係有預計唔到嘅因素啦，有啲遺憾啦叫做咁，但係我都盡咗力㗎啦。咁我都喺度都祝願大家係上年都好辛苦啦，咁大家都喺2021年都繼續去做好自己啦，咁各方面都加油啊！多謝。
俾大力啲掌聲俾智慧先。
本身就係醫生同埋病者嘅關係啦。
一路爬上去嘅時候，去到第一節嘅時候，就發現到一個最大嘅難題啦。
People of America, people of the world, this has been for all of us a challenging year. We started in January, responding to disasters, massive fires in Australia, devastating earthquakes in Puerto Rico.
And then we came upon a crisis unlike anything we've seen for generations.
Our daily lives were overturned in a way none of us could have ever imagined. Schools closed, millions of Americans lost their jobs.
Families were forced to wait for hours just to get a plate of food. Communities were pushed to their limits and beyond.
But now, as we look ahead to the future, we need to take this moment to make the biggest change, to do for others what we dream of doing for ourselves.
To uplift the restaurant industry as a powerful solution to the challenges we face. To appreciate where our food comes from.
From the farm to the kitchen to the table. For our nation to build longer tables, to embrace empathy and speak up for humanity. For our communities to stay close, to be there every single day for each other. And for our own community of supporters, of chefs, volunteers, the people of World Central Kitchen, to keep doing the work we do to fulfill our mission, to be there wherever there is a fight so that people may eat.
So we want to say thank you to every single person who picks our vegetables and fruits, who stocks our grocery store shelves, who brings a meal to a neighbor, who nurses the sick back to health, who shows they care. Thank you.
What is your dream for the future? And how will you make that change in your own community?
We, the people, we can make everything happen if we believe in we, the people.
Hundreds of millions of native indigenous peoples around the world have been imprisoned by the dominant societies under which they exist. This imprisonment has taken many forms. An extreme form, of course, is Leonard Peltier.
I am everyone who ever died without a voice, or a prayer, or a hope, or a chance.
Leonard Peltier is a Native American activist who's been in prison for 40 years, serving 2 consecutive life terms for a crime he maintains he did not commit. In 1977, he was convicted of killing 2 FBI agents, Ronald Williams and Jack Kohler, during a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Peltier was a member of the American Indian Movement, AIM, founded in 1968 during the Civil Rights Movement to advocate for the rights of Native Americans. The murders occurred at a time when AIM supporters and residents of Pine Ridge were being intimidated and killed, allegedly by paramilitaries connected to the government. A climate of fear and terror prevailed. After 2 AIM members were acquitted of the killings, witnesses were coerced by the FBI into saying they saw Peltier shoot the agents. Ballistics evidence that could have aided Leonard's defense was hidden from his lawyers.
The only thing I'm guilty of is struggling for my people. I didn't kill those agents.
It was not a fair trial. The conclusion reached by federal appeals judge Gerald Heaney, who stated, the prosecution withheld evidence favorable to the defendant, and the FBI used improper tactics in extraditing Peltier and otherwise in investigating and trying Peltier's case.
I'll be an old man when I get out. If I get out.
Leonard Peltier has spent 40 years in federal penitentiaries, often in solitary confinement. He's now 71 years old and in rapidly declining health. There are concerns that he's not receiving adequate medical treatment and his condition could be fatal.
They're giving him the death penalty by leaving him in that type of an environment. The man needs medical treatment. He needs to have access to medical treatment. If they're not going to give medical treatment to him, they need to release him as soon as possible.
This very day, each of us and all of us must raise our voices in chorus of millions, of tens of millions. Until that happens, every day is a new crime. Every dawn is a new crime. Every dusk is a new crime against the dignity of the Indian peoples and the honor of the United States of America.
Amnesty International is calling to grant Leonard Peltier clemency before it's too late. It's an appeal supported by 7 Nobel Peace Prize laureates, including the late Nelson Mandela, and dozens of religious and human rights leaders from the U.S. and around the world. Please.
We ask for you to please grant Leonard Peltier clemency so he can be set free, so he can go home.
It's time to release Leonard Peltier.
Your Holiness, we are curious to know, how can we be focused, healthy, and happy each day?
Gratitude helps us in many ways, like releasing a chemical in our brain called dopamine. It's a happy chemical.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
At one point in the meetings between the Dalai Lama and scientists, he said, in my tradition, we have many methods that help people manage destructive emotions. Bring them into the lab, test them as rigorously as you can, and if it looks like they're of benefit, then spread them widely.
I think basically, I'm short-tempered. You see, something goes wrong. The immediate reaction is to say, oh, shouting. Particularly those are my sort of staff member here.
what I hope for in our exhibit. After 80 years, are there certain things you see in all these photos that are characteristic? I would say this person's the real deal. This is a man who could be afraid of a lot of things he's not, and he's not afraid of death. He's not afraid of growing old. So I want to grow up and be like him.
The idea was to convey a sense of how I felt about the individuals I painted. And I have got great affection for His Holiness. I was fascinated by his lips. And in pursing his lips, he conveyed a sense of joy and inner peace. That's what I tried to capture.
I think the Chinese leadership is definitely waiting for His Holiness to pass away. And they think things will be different in their favor, but I don't think so.
He may be the last one in his lineage that will come back as the Dalai Lama with a formal recognition of the continuation of the institution.
At the end, I think last breathing, if my mind clear, I'm quite sure I will remember, while I'm dying, remember about altruism, entire sentient being. So that I'm quite sure I can practice the moment of my last breathing. If some accident happen or aeroplane go down in the sea, then I don't know.
Garry Kasparov, for decades, considered the best in chess, pummeling opponents both human and machine, until he finally met his match against IBM's supercomputer Deep Blue. Well, Kasparov commanded a respect in Russia most could only dream of, until he turned his back on the Putin regime, opting to challenge it directly as opposition leader in 2005.
This regime is criminal, is a police state.
Kasparov fled, but is still a prominent critic of Putin's and a loud proponent of democracy. So, what does the former Russian opposition leader and chess grandmaster think about the current political climate in the US?
I mean, I was opposing Trump even from the early days of primaries. I mean, I could see the potential danger. But unfortunately, I think Trump was inevitable. It's the lack of response to the real problems of average Americans. Trump, just demonstrated that there were so many problems in American politics that were just, sort of pushed aside. I heard what had been said about Trump by Putin and Russian propaganda machine, which Putin has been building in Russia and eventually pushed to America just to accomplish his big goal. Trump's victory was somehow like a pinnacle of these efforts to have someone in the Oval Office, not in the administration, in the Oval Office, who was openly sympathetic to Putin. Trump wants to run his office the way he ran his business. I mean, unbound leadership. And psychologically, Trump is obedient to Putin.
What is your worst fear?
My fear is not Trump. My fear is Trumpism. My fear is that populism could become a very attractive tool for new Trumps coming from far right or far left. Hopefully we'll see, the politics will be reshaping. Maybe we have to start reconsider some basic ideas of representative democracy. Maybe we should offer individuals more opportunities to intervene in the political process in between elections.
Given your career in chess, I mean, your wealth, your status, you could have lived a very different life.
My mother taught me that a game of chess is not just about winning or losing. Of course, it's about winning, but the most important thing is to make the difference. You have to make tough decisions, and you have to be able to resist pressure and survive after psychological blows and losses. It's more of your character. And with some good training, it's not really hard to reach a certain level. The difficulty starts when you are trying to fight for big titles and just to climb to the top. So you play the game, come up with new ideas, improve the game, just the understanding of the game. And since I left chess, I follow the same rule. It's about making the difference. And I believe that, I could make the difference by helping people to move in the right direction. Today, I can look at my kids and say, I did what I could.
If you do nothing to a piece of land in temperate climates, it will become a forest. The forces of nature are actively moving the land towards a balanced, sustainable, and resilient ecosystem. This is called succession. In southwest England, an unusual forest is growing. Nut trees, fruit trees, shrubs, and perennial vegetables are planted in a way that mimics a natural woodland. This forest garden is the life's work of Martin Crawford, an unconventional gardener who grows 500 edible plants with just a few hours of maintenance per month.
What we think of as normal in terms of food production is actually not normal at all. Annual plants are very rare in nature, and yet most of our agricultural fields are full of annual plants. It's not normal. What's normal is a more forested or semi-forested system. Forest gardens in a temperate climate tend to have 7 layers or so: high trees, smaller trees, shrubs, perennials, ground cover layers, root crops, and climbers. So it includes directly useful plants, many types of fruit trees, both the common ones and much less common fruit trees, all the types of nuts, tuber crops, vegetables, medicinal plants, timber, but also logs that you might grow other things on, like mushrooms. There are also plants of indirect use, system plants, to help the system function better, and that includes nitrogen-fixing plants, mineral accumulators, plants to attract beneficial insects to eat all your pests. Forest gardens are very beautiful places to be in, because although they're managed, the management is light, so they have this very naturalistic feel to them, and it is more like being out in nature than being in a cultivated garden. It can seem a bit overwhelming. There's so many different species. You shouldn't let that stop you from beginning a project, because you don't have to know everything to begin with. Just start, plant some trees, and go from there. It's not the gradually increasing temperatures that damage plants. It's the increase in extreme events, big storms, big winds, very heavy rain, hail, droughts. By having a very diverse system, whatever happens to the weather, most of your crops will probably do fine. Some may fail, some may do better. That's very important going into the future, because we don't know exactly what's going to happen to our weather. So by having a diverse system, it gives you maximum resilience.
My name is Santiago Miguel Terrases. I put out this 3-minute workout of 1 minute of push-ups, 1 minute of sit-ups, and 1 minute of squats, which would get you about 25 to 30 if you did them right in 1 minute, which is pretty difficult to do. Well, for myself, who's also over 300 pounds, 6'4", and well, just like everybody else, when we get older in our 40s, we slowly slow down. So first one, I start off with the squat, nicely straight, up, down. You want to keep your feet flat, and your breath is huge. For myself, I can't get my feet completely flat, but the whole process is to get as low as you can, free weighted, and breathe. All the way on up. And The squats, push-ups, sit-ups, it doesn't matter which kind they are. You can be wide leg squats all the way on down. I prefer to be completely relaxed. No tension in the body, because the more tension you have, the more stress you put on your body. So a lot of breath. You literally no tension in your breathing. And I like to just relax my arms, shoulders, and feel a good stretch. A nice workout for squats. The next one is a push-up. Do them on your fist, your hands, open, sideways. It doesn't matter what kind of push-ups. You're down there for 1 minute. Everything is a 1 minute interval, 1 minute push-up. Sit-up also is leg lifts. Sit up and bent leg, straight leg. It's being able to sit up from laying down on the ground, which a lot of people cannot do. It doesn't matter how you sit on it. Roll to the side. Kick a leg up, legs up, leg lifts. The ultimate goal is to sit on it.
Time.
After your workout, it's a lot of it's you want to breathe in your nose. Breathe out your mouth. And just slowly get your heart to calm down. When I first started doing this, I couldn't really get a really good push-up, let alone hold that for a whole minute. Even doing squats for a whole minute straight. It gets you. Sit-ups, the same thing, as long as you do it every day on a daily basis. It doesn't matter what time you do it. It really helps the body just slowly heal and move. To me, it's for everybody just to feel good about themselves on a daily basis. And then you slowly start to progress yourself into doing a little bit more. I thank you guys. I love you. And I will probably be making more videos on more of the healing aspect of what I do. Thank you.
Uttarakhand, land of the gods. This Himalayan gateway, once replete with alpine splendor, now lies half abandoned, a pale shadow of its former self.
दो में हमारे पास 113 बच्चे थे, लेकिन धीरे धीरे बच्चे कम होते गए। स्थिति ये है कि आज हमारे पास सिर्फ 8 बच्चे रह गए।
10-year-old Varnika lost her father at an early age. Her her mother works as a cook for 2,000 rupees a month. The family of 5 survive on her meager income.
गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से बच्चों को एक तो यूनिफॉर्म मिलती है, एक मिड डे मील मिलती है बच्चों को, एक बच्चों को ये भी मिलता है बुक्स मिलती है बच्चों को, लेकिन स्टेशनरी नहीं मिलती है बच्चों को। बिना स्टेशनरी के पढ़ाई नहीं हो सकती है सर। ये स्टेशनरी जो है अपनी जेब से लाते हैं क्योंकि वो पेरेंट्स नहीं दे पाता है।
With a population in excess of 1.3 billion, there exist huge economic disparities between the different regions of India. One way of filling these gaps is through public initiative and selfless service. Ambuj Joshi is a young animation entrepreneur based in Dehradun.
मैंने सोसाइटी से बहुत कुछ लिया है क्योंकि आर्टिस्ट एक ऐसा व्यक्ति होता है जो कि पूरी सोसाइटी के सपोर्ट से ही क्रिएट होता है और मैं यही चाहता हूँ कि मैं भी अब सोसाइटी को जो मैंने लिया है वो किसी न किसी वे में वापस कर पाऊँ। ऐसा एक प्रोजेक्ट है मिशन एजुकेशन नाम का। मिशन एजुकेशन में गरीब बच्चों को सपोर्ट किया जाता है उनके एजुकेशन को, और क्योंकि लर्निंग का और आर्टिस्ट का एक बहुत डीप कनेक्शन है और वही कनेक्शन जो है वो मुझे इस प्रोजेक्ट में एक अपॉर्चुनिटी नज़र आई जो मैं वापस दे पाऊँ।
Manav Utthan Sewa Samiti is a socio-spiritual charitable organization led by the visionary Shri Satpal Ji Maharaj, who aims to promote social harmony through the dissemination of spiritual knowledge.
शिक्षा का दान सबसे बड़ा दान है। अगर हम एक गरीब बच्चे को रोटी देते हैं तो रोटी खाने के बाद फिर उसे भूख लगेगी, परंतु उसे अगर हम शिक्षित करते हैं तो वो अपने लिए रोटी कमा सकता है, अपने पैरों पर खड़ा हो सकता है। If we educate a child, we educate a nation.
The simple value of sharing is tremendous, but it's just that people are hesitant because they don't know what they can share with someone. So that's where the team of Mission Education worked very well, of reaching individually to teachers, principals and the students and explaining to them that how a little contribution for them can really change lives.
मिलते हैं कलेक्टिवली सारे स्टूडेंट्स जहाँ पर हैं उनको प्रेजेंट करते हैं, फिर क्या करते हैं हमारी वही टीम क्लासरूम में जाके उनको छोटे स्मॉल ग्रुप में जाके बताती है कि आपका छोटा सा शेयर जो आप शेयर करेंगे ये कितना बड़ा हेल्पफुल हो सकता है। जब वो फिल हो जाता है हमारे बच्चे वहाँ पर पहुँचते हैं, उनके सामने उस मटेरियल को वहाँ पर निकाला जाता है, उसकी लिस्टिंग की जाती है और वो एक लिस्ट उस स्कूल के साथ शेयर की जाती है। अकॉर्डिंग टू नीड हमने क्या किया, वो पैकेट बनाए। हमने 3 कॉपी रखी, उसमें एक पेंसिल रखी, एक कटर रखा, एक पेन रखा, उसका सेट बनाया और हमारी टीम मटेरियल लेके जाती है और उनको डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करती है।
वर्णिका
थैंक यू दोस्तों जिन्होंने मेरे लिए काफ़ी किताबें भेजी हैं, उनसे मैं पढ़कर आपको कुछ बनकर दिखाऊंगी।
There was a very big question that was on all our minds is what we'll do next. We came across an idea that there are a lot of people in the cities who cannot even afford city education. We reached the conclusion that let's have a classroom in a bus which is mobile.
जब से हमने स्टार्ट किया है तो उनके पेरेंट्स काफ़ी खुश हैं कि हम लोग तो कुछ नहीं पढ़ पाए, कम से कम ये बच्चे इतना बेसिक तो पढ़ लें। हम इनको बेसिक शिक्षा दे रहे हैं कि अपना अगर इनको हिसाब किताब करना है, मजदूरी भी करनी है तो ठेकेदार से पैसे ले सकें।
और हम सभी को निमंत्रण देते हैं कि आप हमारे साथ शेयर कीजिए, आप हमारे साथ पार्टनरशिप में आइए, आप हमारे साथ कोऑपरेट करिए ताकि हम राष्ट्र का निर्माण कर सकें और एक शिक्षित राष्ट्र बना सकें।